Watch This Week in Missouri Politics, Sunday mornings at 11 on ABC 30.
Panel. This week, we're joined by Ann Schweitzer, Public Eye STL, Incorporated, of course. We have a history maker here this week with Scott Dieckhaus, the Executive Director of HRCC, elected 118 members.
Yes.
And speaking of electoral wins, Megan Shackelford with the Kelley Group coming off her big win in the county exec race. And Danny Pfeifer, the founder, owner of Catalyst, an up-and-coming lobbying firm, and does a little bit of everything, right, here in Missouri. Yeah. And Dave, we'll start with you.
Sure.
The biggest news this week had to be Claire McCaskill ending weeks of speculation and saying that she would, in fact, not run for governor and run for the United States Senate. What does that do to the political scene?
I think it's going to have a profound impact on 2016, particularly on the Democrat side. I think, you know, there's no doubt it was a great day for the Attorney General and it was a great day for the Democrat Party when she made that announcement. I think that it really is going to free General Koster up to run the kind of campaign that he wants to run. He's going to have 20-some months now to travel the state and talk with people about issues that he cares about and to be the kind of candidate he wants, which really, I think, is a conservative Democrat. He's not going to have the challenges of a primary where he has to go talk about more left issues, seeking Democrat votes. He's not going to have to seek, hopefully, the endorsement of the Sierra Club or or other more left-leaning groups. He's going to be freed from that and be able to talk about issues that I think are more representative of him and his career. If you look, I mean, some people don't know or forget, but he was a Republican prosecutor. He was a Republican senator. And was elected Republican caucus chair just days after being elected to the Senate, and has taken some pretty conservative stances on things as Attorney General, where the Republicans, in contrast, are not going to probably have that luxury if they have to fight out a tough primary.
Megan Shackelford, how will that go down for the left, though? I mean, those are all things that make good sense to win a general election. Is he out of the woods yet on a primary?
I would hope so. I think, you know, historically, we've seen that Democrats aren't always the best at clearing our fields for primaries. We don't always help ourselves as much as we probably should. And I think we saw that really play out with the senator and Bob Holden back before Governor Blunt took office. And that did not work out well for us. So I'm just pleased to see that we can kind of all come to the table, see where everyone's strengths lie. We need the senator in the Senate where she is. As a Democrat, I don't want to lose that. She's a good moderate. She represents Missouri very well, and we need to continue that.
And she would have appointed a Democrat. Is there some on the left that are a little bit disappointed that some of those issues that Danny talked about won't be discussed now for 20 months?
I'm personally pretty disappointed. I worked on her campaign for governor in 2004 as a volunteer, so I've been a McCaskill fan for a long time. So I'm definitely disappointed that she won't be running, but I agree completely with Megan that we really do need her in the Senate.
2018, do you think she pulls through and runs?
I hope so. I think she'll run. I think she'll run. I think she would have had more reason to run for governor if she wasn't planning on running for the Senate. So,
Scott Dieckhaus, you're the campaign guru. You have the reigning title here in Missouri. What does this do to the race? What does this do to House races? What does this do to the races that aren't governor?
You know, I don't think it has much impact on House races directly. I think you know, I think Claire McCaskill, Senator McCaskill, is a very smart woman. I think she looked at the landscape. I think she realized that she probably was going to create more problems by running for governor for the party, for the Democrats in Missouri, than help by running for governor. I think she probably realized that Obama is extraordinarily unpopular in Missouri, that she's been tied to Obama, and really there's no way to loosen those ties. It was going to make things difficult. You hear rumors that she had polls in the field or whatever, and I don't know that that's true. I think that she probably could have figured that out without a poll, that it was a tough path forward. You know, I think, excuse me, I think the state of Missouri has swung far enough to the right and has become more red since 2008 that, you know, Senator McCaskill's ties to Obama would have been extraordinarily difficult.
Because, Megan, because that state has swung more red, it looks like, is Jason Kander a happier man today? Is he a relieved person?
I think probably so. I think it allows him to have his field and his options much more open than they otherwise would be. But I think that it's really not entirely correct to say that we have become this red state. I think that a lot of it has to do with the way our districts are drawn, where our populations reside, and how they're lumped together, because we clearly still have a stronghold, the Democratic Party does, in statewide offices.
Would you be able to say you still have a stronghold if the Senator's decision was different?
I would say that we still have a stronghold. I still think there are more voters who are likely to go with a moderate Democrat than they are a more extreme conservative Republican when it comes to population. Whenever it comes to these state, more local races, clearly the way the districts are drawn have us in a bad position. But I do think that the race between the senator and the attorney general would have been problematic, especially because they're very similar in their style. They're both moderate. They both come from a prosecutorial background, and I just think it wouldn't have been a
Only one voted for
worthwhile
Obamacare, though.
primary.
Would you be able to get around?
Yeah.
Danny Pfeiffer, the 118 seats, it would seem like there is more than a small move to the right, but it doesn't always transition to these statewide races, like Megan was saying.
No.
With this in mind, do you think this makes it more likely for some of the other statewide Democrats to want to jump into races? Does a John Wright make a comeback because this ticket will be led by Chris Koster?
I think that they have to consider that. I really do. I think that it makes it more attractive. The Democrat ticket surely isn't settled yet. And there's still some seats that I think there's speculation of different people who may or may not run. There may be primary for one or more, there may not, but it definitely makes it more attractive.
It's always been my opinion, and I'd be very interested in your thoughts. People make this assumption that there's a clear front runner, but I think there's some statistics that show the state is getting more red because of whatever reason, the people that show up and vote are voting more Republican. Do you think that it's a slam dunk because it's Koster? I mean, I think the Republicans have a very good, two qualified candidates. This would be a very competitive race. Our poll last week showed it only being a 4 and a 6 point race with Koster, and that's with him having a much higher name ID.
I don't think it's a slam dunk necessarily. I think it depends how red he can make the opponent look. Because with McCaskill and Aiken, when she was able to pull out every red thing he's ever said or done, that definitely helped her win in the end. So if he's able to kind of follow that lead, he has a good chance with that.
And Megan, changing topics, we just heard Jeff Rainford, the longest serving chief of staff in city history, leave. What is your impression of what that does to the St. Louis City political scene?
You know, I think that it's going to really give us like a fresh new breath, but at the same time, Jeff has been there for 14 years. He is an idol to any Politico who's working in the city of St. Louis. And Mary Ellen Ponder, who will replace him, has learned from the best. And so I think we're really going to see an interesting thing where she's gotten to see the history of how he's been able to accomplish so many things that he highlighted earlier. But I'm good friends with Mary Ellen, and she comes from a different background than Jeff, which I think is going to be incredibly helpful for the city. She comes from an advocacy background, from more of an organizing field background. So she really understands community, she understands people, she understands diversity and different groups of people in a way that I think will really freshen the city. And really, we probably need that now more than ever.
Danny, whatever happens at City Hall, Republicans in Jeff City are extremely receptive to Francis Slade. Do you wonder if Jeff Rainford leaving will affect that, or?
You know, I think it will. I mean, let me say, as someone who's worked and learned from Jeff Rainford over the years, there's no bigger political pro in the state, and I'd echo your comments. If there was a portrait of what a political professional was hanging somewhere, it would be Jeff Rainford. And so he certainly will leave a hole, but Ms. Ponder is more than qualified to take it, and the mayor is still the mayor at the end of the day. And I think that the Republican legislature will respond to him the same as they have.
And tell us a little bit about Mary Ellen Ponder. What do you think her running the ship will look like?
I agree with Megan. She does come from an organizing background, and that's reflected every day in her work. She brings people together from all over the City Hall building. She's worked really well with Walterman. I think he'll be a great director of operations. Patrick Brown and Mary Ellen have worked really closely together as well. Patrick replaced Mary Ellen coordinating with the alderman when Mary Ellen became operations director.
So. It was interesting to note in the Post-Dispatch story on the move, some of the folks that aren't normally that charitable to the mayor spoke highly of her. And I think she got some thank you or some congratulatory cards sent to her. Do you think there'll be a slight change in the message coming from City Hall to the Board of Aldermen?
Possibly. I think she just works really well with other people. And I think people respect that.
And I think Jeff had a great point when he said their style is certainly different.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Jeff has a way of really staying focused on what he knows needs to happen and more of a tunnel vision way of getting that accomplished, which has obviously been very successful. But I think you will see that Mary Ellen is more of the coalition building type. She can certainly be tough. She was my first boss in St. Louis City when I moved here. But she is also very encouraging and able to see things from people's point of view in a way that makes her very relatable and likable, and you want to work with her. And I think that that's just something unique, and it's a great time to have that for the city. Speaking
of change, Scott Dieckhaus, you helped elect the majority of the people in the House now, and I think in part because of the job HRCC's done, you've had to break out to a new committee structure. Can you explain to our viewers this new committee structure and how this facilitates such a large majority?
Sure. I think, we've had successes as a Republican majority. I think that's part of the reason that we continue to grow the majority as well. But there have been miscues and missteps along the way. There have been pieces of legislation that have kind of snuck through the process, or people thought something meant something that it didn't, and legislation got passed, and we had to go back the next session and correct those things. So I think changing the structure and allowing for more oversight, more accountability within the House alone, I think it's going to take a lot of those missteps and miscues out of the process. And basically what we've got is kind of super committees overseeing committees, subcommittees beneath those, and each one of those super committees kind of oversees 3 or 4 different subcommittees that are tied to the same topic. So it feeds up. I think it takes some of the power from the Speaker's office, and I think that Speaker Deal deserves a lot of credit for coming in and saying, I'll concede some power. The Speaker used to have a pretty good thumb on things with the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is much less powerful than it was before. I just think overall it's good for policy. I think it's good for Jefferson City. I think it's good for the members. I think it's ultimately good for the state, and I think Speaker Deal deserves a lot of credit for that.
Coming from your background as a former elected representative, that's an interesting take. And do you see any, are you more hopeful this new committee structure will bring any legislation that you like?
I don't know if I'm hopeful that it'll bring in more legislation I like. What I wonder is how it'll work for lobbyists. When you have a whole special committee, I see Danny laughing over there. But how will that work? You have a committee that a bill would normally go through, and then it would move on. But now, that's not exactly how it's going to happen. There's going to be a whole special committee and all these other people that have their hands in these bills that you wouldn't have expected them to have hands in before. So that's my main question for how that will work now.
Megan, are you any more hopeful that legislation you like? You've been a little critical of Jefferson City in the past.
I'm never hopeful that this legislature is going to get anything done. I mean, I think hopefully, yeah,
Danny, what will happen here?
Look, there's got to be a process, and this, I think, is a good move. I agree with Scott. This is a good move by Speaker Deal, decentralizing power. It creates more work for lobbyists and firms like me. They have to talk to more people, not one rules committee, 13 sort of committees who will be the deciders on this stuff.
And I think we'll have to end it with you doing more work in the legislature.